Hey, y'all, welcome to another Wednesday. That means we catch up with our guy from the War Rapport. That's Mike Gittens. Thank you so much for stopping by, my friend. We got to start on the diamond. The Auburn Tigers moving on to the Super Regional and did not play around at Plainsman's Park. Mike, just your reaction to the Auburn Tigers moving on.
Well, first of all, the hosting a regional, big deal. They've done it a couple times in the last few years, but they were really able to take advantage of that home field advantage that they had there. Rex, Plainsman Park was insane. They went through a renovation of the field recently. It looks beautiful. And what looked even more beautiful were all the home runs that they were blasting out at that joint the last 3 games. If you don't know how the regionals go, you got to win 3 to move on. And if Auburn had lost on Sunday, they would have to play another game on Monday. They won every game they played and just kind of romped through that regional. Now they're set to host a super regional coming up here, which is the first time that's ever happened in Auburn history. But they're a really good baseball team. They bounced back from a tough season last year. And as long as the bats are going, I think they've got a good shot. One of the things that I noted was, while they do well hitting, defense was a little sloppy in the first game or two, right? And they really cleaned that up in the last game. It was kind of a slow game until the 4th or 5th inning, and then the bats came alive, and suddenly they were just running them out of the park there, NC State. So it was a good game. I think they've got a lot of momentum here, and hopefully they can keep it going. There were a lot of SEC teams that made this College World Series in the regional rounds, but a lot got eliminated. Auburn was not one of them.
So that was my next point, actually, is that, you had big teams like Texas go in, Vandy go in. We always expect those guys to kind of make a run at Omaha. Texas falls to UTSA, Vandy falls as well. What does this say about Auburn being one of the last SEC teams standing?
I think it shows that, number one, how tough the conference is, right? I mean, these are really good teams that are falling. Don't forget Ole Miss, right, who's won the College World Series just recently. For them to fall out is that's kind of what you expect of Ole Miss, right? Like in everything. But ultimately, it's a tough league, right? And we talk about Auburn being an everything school, but we don't talk enough, I think, about the SEC being an everything conference, right? Yeah, with football, basketball, and now baseball has just been so good. The quality of baseball is so good. So, look, they've got a really good shot here. Here I think it's Costal Carolina that's coming up that they've got to play. This is a very, very good baseball team that they're facing off against, and a lot of people feel like they haven't played anybody as tough as Costal Carolina since they swept LSU earlier in the season. But it should be fun to watch what they do.
All right, and now look, a road to Omaha means you got to win at Plainsman's Park. 2 out of 3 in this round. Super Regional's a little different. Should be really exciting. Good luck to the Tigers. But we got to head to the basketball court. We've talked about all the talent Bruce Pearl can bring in from other places. One guy staying on the Plains, and it made massive news, didn't it, Mike?
Tahaad Pettiford is coming back. Massive coup for Auburn basketball. Look, he flirted with the draft, and we saw this last year with Janai Broome, where he went and went through the process, got his evaluation, and NIL has opened the door for college athletes to stay in college longer. And, college basketball has a unique issue. So when you recruit at the level that Bruce Pearl recruits and John Calipari and some of these other coaches recruit, your best player every year could be a freshman or your most talented player. Well, what happens is they ball out for a year, and then they're gone, and you're stuck replacing your best player every single year. Well, now for 2 years straight, Auburn's most talented and best player has returned to the Plains, which is unprecedented. Think about the players that left before these guys. Isaac Okoro, Jabari Smith, right, Sharif Cooper, all guys who, if they had multiple years in college,
Auburn would be in a different position.
So you've got him coming back takes a lot off of this team, because he's the only player returning from that Final Four team.
Crazy.
It's a wild turnover for this team, but the only player returning. They were exploring some extra years of eligibility due to the JUCO rules for some of the guys. Ultimately, none of that panned out. So you're left with Tahaad Pettiford and a bunch of new guys. And one of those new guys is Keyshawn Hall from UCF. He led the Big 12 in scoring last year. I ran into him at the baseball game this weekend. He's happy to be on the Plains. His teammates were down there to watch the game with him. And look, these guys just have to gel quickly. It's a lot of talent they've amassed in a short amount of time. Bruce Pearl's challenge, Stephen Pearl's challenge will be getting these guys to play together. Guys like Mike Burgermaster and Ira Bowman, masters of their craft, these guys will help get them along. So he's got a great support staff, but it's a lot of talent that they've amassed. I don't think talent's going to be the issue. I think it's just going to be how well does this group play together? Because honestly, a lot of people are going to want to hear this.
Oh boy.
Top to bottom, this might be a more talented basketball team than the team that made the Final Four last year.
More talented than the team that made it all the way to the Final Four. That's really scary right there. You posted something really interesting here, but how good can Tahaad Pettiford be now that he's back on the Plains, he's back in the system again? And look, he was a good player with guys like Janai Broome and Chad Baker-Mazzara and all these guys needing the ball. He was a solid contributor, but now it looks like he's going to be in the driver's seat, right?
I think he is going to be in the driver's seat. He should start the season in the conversation for National Player of the Year. Just an incredible talent returning. Look, guys like Janai Broome, with the kind of an eternal chip on their shoulders. They come in and they feel like they have to prove it. They've got to prove to everybody how good they are. Yes, I am as good as Cooper Flagg. Yeah, but Tahaad Pettiford is actually, he might be the first front runner we've seen at Auburn in quite some time. Even Alabama fans are like, all right, yeah, this guy is legit.
He's a problem.
Yeah, there's no way to deny how good he is. I can't remember a time where Auburn had as much hype around a player as Tahaad Pettiford will have going into next season. Look, Jabari Smith was really good. Obviously, he's a very good NBA player, but he was a true freshman, and he looked like a freshman at times.
He did.
And
some high-pressure moments where, like, look, it happens when you're that young and you've never been at that level of college basketball, deer in the headlights. Pettiford has been in those moments because, again, Auburn lost a couple games during the regular season. They had those moments where it came down to the last shot. But one thing, I don't know if you noticed this too, but his aggressiveness never went away.
Yeah.
And that's going to be key coming back this season, isn't it?
That shows the trust that Bruce Pearl has in this young man to be able to let him go out and play ball. When Aiden Holloway left, he said, oh, they kind of sold me a dream. Well, nobody told Aiden not to shoot.
That's fair.
He had a green light to shoot.
That's fair.
Tahaad Pettiford has a green light to shoot, and he had some tough stretches there, but they allowed him to play through it. They never stopped believing in him. And look, man, he turned up in tournament time when they needed him. Ultimately, they ran into a buzzsaw, Walter Clayton Jr. in Florida.
Player of the tournament. Florida went on an incredible run.
Yeah, Walter Clayton, super senior there, incredible run by him. So hats off.
From like a second-round pick to a guy who should be picked in the top 10.
Look, I mean, just really good. And then you think about it. He was a senior, though.
Super senior,
so getting those guys to come back is a part of the equation about making deep runs. It's not always the most talented teams. Sometimes it's just the most tenured and experienced teams that are making these deep runs, that have been together. They understand what their coach needs of them, and they've been in these moments. These moments aren't new to them, right? So that's why I think Tahaad Pettiford coming back is so big for Auburn. If you have a guy who's been there, like, he got a taste of that. And let me tell you something. It sticks in his craw that Auburn got eliminated in that Final Four in San Antonio. Talking to those guys in the locker room after the game, Rex, you could tell. Right? Yeah, it was a painful thing that Tahaad Pettiford will get a chance to erase that memory and replace it with somebody else. His teammates that have moved on, they won't get that chance. So this is big.
That second chance, though, for as big a competitor as Tahaad is, really interesting to see come back to the Plains. And you're right, that learning curve, the fact that it's so short now, that's going to allow him to flourish even more. You've talked about Keyshawn in this segment and in other ones as well. Is there anyone else coming to the Plains that you look at like, okay, this is going to be a really interesting player for Bruce Pearl?
Yeah, I think Bashir and Emeka Oporum are guys that I'm looking at as well, too. There's so much talent to talk about here. But Oporum, I think, will be interesting. You've got to replace all that production in the middle, right? Dylan Cardwell is gone.
Janai's gone.
Janai's gone.
Chance could play down there a little bit. So it's a lot to replace. You're right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be looking at him to see how he develops. I can't wait to get my first sight of these guys at practice to see, kind of get a gauge for their athleticism. This is a tall team, and so it should be fun to watch.
Now, I also saw that you were able to catch up with Larry Vickers for a little bit. Just your overall interaction with him. We've heard him at the press conference. We've seen some things. Everyone seems to like him. Andy mentioned that, Andy Burcham, the voice of the Auburn Tigers, says that he's really confident in him. You spent a little bit more time with him. What can we expect from the women's basketball
Well,
team?
he's a really busy guy these days,
Yes.
trying to fill out a roster and get things organized. But he's filled out his staff. There were a few administrative holdovers that he had to help him transition. Some really good people that I think will do a good job for him. But ultimately, he's got a tough task ahead. He's got a really, really tough task ahead in that he's got to be able to get these girls to play together again, same as Bruce Pearl, really quickly. So he had to go to the portal and he had to put together a team. The only returning players are Caitlin Duhan and Soraya Daniels.
Okay.
So it's going to be, I think their experience is going to be key because these other girls haven't played in the SEC. It's become a really tough conference in women's basketball. But
the glass ceiling is really hard to get through because you have the South Carolinas and the LSUs in your own conference. So, but I'm glad what you're seeing is that he's a busy guy, and he's a guy who can obviously recruit and had a lot of success, and he has more resources at Auburn University. But as you mentioned before, those resources have to come in. We need to have buy-in with the women.
Don't forget, he came into Auburn and got the win coaching for Norfolk State last season. So look, he's no stranger to the Plains. He understands what the task is. But my message to fans is patience. Right? What he's been tasked with is not an easy job, right? Because I'm not sure the support is there for women's basketball that exists for baseball and football and men's basketball and gymnastics. And to be fair to men's basketball, Bruce Pearl built it out of the mud, man. He had to build the support that he had.
I think people forget that Jared Harper and Bryce Brown weren't 5-stars. They were not these all-world beaters coming out of high school. And then Bruce just coached them up, and they made that magical run in 19.
So it's patience. It's going to take time. Bruce showed competency early with the talent, and that will buy you some time. But this is not going to be a 1-year fix, a 2-year fix. There are going to be some tough losses ahead. The fans need to be patient. Administrators need to be patient. And eventually, they're going to have to start to invest the dollars, Rex, because you cannot compete consistently without it. Hugh Freeze knows that on the football side. What is it going to take? The question I have, what is it going to take? What does Larry Vickers have to show for them to say, you know what, here's $1 million in NIL to play with.
Go crazy.
Right? For a whole team, by the way.
Wow.
Right? Like, we're talking about, we have basketball players and football players who are getting around that.
I was about to say, one quarterback, that's about what gets you one really good quarterback in the SEC.
$600,000, he could completely transform his roster. So you've got to give him the resources to compete at a high level. If they want to wait and see how he does this first year, I get that. But ultimately, fans, administrators, the people in charge cannot be delusioned into thinking that he's going to create miracles out of nothing consistently. You may have a good year, one-off year here and there, Rex, but if you want to compete consistently at college sports, at major college sports level, it's money. Absolutely. It's money in women's basketball the same way it is in men's basketball, baseball, and football.
It's a truth that we can't get away from. Mike, you've done a phenomenal job. And everything school is going to keep this man busy because, look, we have SEC Media Days coming up, and the baseball team hopefully can punch their ticket to Omaha in just 2 games. Mike, you do a great job with the War Rapport, but where can people find you?
Going over to YouTube, as Rex mentioned, SEC Media Days is coming. We're live. Nobody puts out more content from SEC Media Days than we do. We'll sit down.
They are busy as all get out, y'all. They are crazy busy. So, again, YouTube, the War Rapport, and also following you on Twitter and all those social media.
Look, we sit down with Commissioner Greg Sankey every year. It's a great conversation with him. But yes, follow us on social media at the War Rapport, TW Report on TikTok.
All right, that's Mike Gittens, y'all. That does it for another War Rapport Wednesday. We'll see you next week.